thank you so much for coming on out. I am literally fresh off the road. I just finished about 3 months and 7,000 miles of driving around Western United States and Canada. So if I'm a little bit rough around the edges, that's why. I'm also very lo-fi, so I will be taking you through the presentation via Finder and printout. So these are my tech, as you can see. That vehicle. And just wanted to mention how cool it is that I think it's one of the first times that SBC has done a live stream. So we're streaming live to the interweb. And a little shout out to all my peeps who are tuning in from New Hampshire. We've got Minto, LA, Cary, Santa Cruz, Sarah, Maine, Clayton, Park City, Cassie, Cohar and Phil in San Jose, LA, Boulder, and Myron in Flagstaff. Heyo! These are all colleagues, friends of mine who are all over the place that I've met in my travels, so pretty wicked that they're joining us today. Like nomads. So figured that should be part of our presentation. So I'm going to tell you all about the good, bad, the beautiful, and the downright ugly of being on the road, because I have been living nomadically for about 4 years now. And I'm going to tell you some good stories, like how I hit a tree, and how I got mistaken for a prostitute, and how I regularly get interrogated by the American Border Services. So, yeah, lots of good juicy stories in there. Yes, basically as the song says, how did I get here? Behind the wheel of a large automobile, as Talking Heads was singing to us earlier. And I definitely was asking myself that multiple times in places like this, all alone in the wilderness. Just me and Betty. So some stats just off the bat. 4 years, about 17,000 miles in the RV, about 22,000 miles in my car. I now have a Honda Element. I got some pictures, I'll show you that later. About 18 national parks, and I usually spend about 3 to 6 months in each place when I actually park for a while. Otherwise, I'm literally living on the road. Someone asked me today, where do you live? I don't live anywhere. So that is both the blessing and the challenge of my life. How did I get here? So yes, Larry pretty much covered it, but I will just shout out and back up what everyone up here said, in that AIGA, SBC, and Jeff Barlow are all awesome. Because I would not be here without any of them. Long story short, I was working my way up in the design world here in Seattle. Didn't have hardly any connections except for working in front desk of this school. And I decided to volunteer for AIGA at the 2012 In the Woods conference. Super fun. Basically, you guys have never heard of that. And I made a complete fool of myself. I'm an outgoing, fun-loving person, and so there was a dress up as a camper contest. I show up like full rock climbing gear, like shoes, chalk bag, everything, headlamp, blah blah blah, toilet paper, playing up in. I win. It was great. There's a poker tournament, poker, so we played and dressed up as James Bond, etc. That was great. And at the end of it, I'd always thought like my goal was to get to Starbucks. I get approached by Jeff Barlow, who I took a class from here, typography, and he comes up to me and says, "How would you like to interview at Starbucks headquarters? Like, what have I done in this conference to show you that I'm qualified to work at Starbucks headquarters?" What he didn't tell me was that after his class, I went in, showed him my portfolio, he gave me feedback, he bookmarked it, looked at it once a month ever since, and saw that I was like ready, according to him. Me going and volunteering at AIGA was just the last straw to show him that I was passionate. He wanted both. He wanted talent, passion, hard work, dedication, all that jazz. He invited me in, interviewed, came here that night, printed off thank you cards on the letterpress, and biked them to Starbucks the next morning, and they were there before they got in their seats. And he remembers telling his buddy, who helped interview me later, showed him the card and just said, "Hired." So in case you ever want a creative way to thank people for interviews. But anyways, that's the long and short of the story of how I got there. Then next to Howard Schultz Sports Car of the Week for about a year. I started getting burnt out, basically. No other way to put it, really, but the whole, 9 to 5 cubicle thing just wasn't for me. And so I, would tell my coworkers that I would daydream about purchasing a large vehicle and driving off in the sunset, which everybody says. But I did. And so I spent all my hard-earned money on that and gas. A lot of gas. After that, before that, I'll show you some context. So this is what I did over the last 3 months. I spent the summer in Alaska, which we'll talk about in a bit, and then I drove all the way down through Canada's Alaska Canadian Highway, took about 5 days. Flew around Western Oregon, big old loop around the west, flew out to Maine for a bit, up to Quebec City, amazing. First time there, flew back, and then came here like a couple weeks ago. So that was fun and crazy. These are some of the places that I camped and worked and lived and things in the RV. All the little camper icons are where we slept. So you can see that there's nothing worth seeing east of Denver. Just kidding. But no, I'm never getting into this. But Betty just doesn't go beyond. She just kind of turns herself around like Kirby. I don't know. So there she is on our wedding day when I bought her. She is a 24-foot long, 10-foot tall, 8-foot wide, Class C 1988 motor home. She's not a camper, she's not a trailer, she's a motor home. Her name is Betty. She was named before I got her, and it fits, so it stuck. On the inside, she now looks like this. Bamboo flooring, LED lighting, solar setup on the top, blah, blah, blah. This is the kitchen. Barbie stove and Barbie oven. Standing desk, custom carpentry there, slides out from the loft. Love it. Books. Postcards, sold places. That's my solar readout. And after, this is my map wall of fame. Kitchenette, dinette. And that's where my bike goes. It's the only place with fit, trust me, I tried everywhere. So then, after doing that for a year or something, I decided, how did it all work? Parker for a while, and wanted to make a big change again. Yes. And go work in Alaska. Basically, you guys know NOLS, National Outdoor Leadership School. Really rad group if you like the outdoors. They have really cool classes and really cool job postings. And I read one that said, how would you like to live on a glacier? How would you like to work with sled dogs? And how would you like to commute to work in a helicopter? How many people would possibly say yes to that? Yeah? Okay, that's what I thought, right? Applied on Monday, interviewed Tuesday, got the job Wednesday, gave notice Thursday, packed my stuff Friday, drove home to my parents' house on Saturday, and then flew out. And went from here, currently living in Seattle, to there. About a week. And that's where I lived for 3 months. This is on a glacier, on an ice field outside of Skagway, Alaska. And this was the inside of my tent. I was a tour guide. What did I do? Yes, that's important. So my job was to load and unload helicopters. So we're dealing with fuel, garbage, food for us. We lived up there. There was me and 15 other people and 240 Alaskan Huskies. This is a tourist operation. People fly up from cruise ships that start here and go there and pay a lovely sum of money to go on a 40-minute dog tour ride and then fly back down. We're to make sure that they were safe, take care of the dogs, feed them, clean up after them, give them medication, put sunscreen on their noses. Pretty cute. And so we worked 12, 13-hour days, 6, 7 days a week, 3 months straight. It's a gold rush, alive and well. These are some of the dogs I have to take care of. They're amazing. Yes, those are real mountains. Those are our view. I also got to clean the porta potty. So literally just scooped human and dog food for a living. Next year, came back and had a slightly more glamorous position as a glacier guide. So no dogs this time, just guiding people around the glacier. And lunch. And, taking pictures with the shorts. And wonderful majestic glacier in the background. And, so that was Alaska. And this is our camp. And this was what I looked at when I brushed my teeth. If you haven't been to Alaska yet, go. What I have to say about that. So I did that for 2 summers. In the winters, I would be living in the RV or traveling around. Background, how am I making money? That's a great question. When I left Starbucks, basically, I already had some freelance clients. And I guess, you ever read The Alchemist? Anybody? Fantastic book. There's a quote that I'll botch, but it's basically, when you set an intention in your head, the universe will conspire in your favor. And I think by setting this intention, work started coming to me, right? And so a freelance client would contact me, and another one would contact me, et cetera, et cetera. And I started using it to support myself when I wasn't guiding in Alaska with summers. And then it grew to a point where it was too much for me to even do in the summer. So I would literally get up at 5, sometimes, work on freelance work until 7 when I had to get on the helicopter, fly to work, work, come back, work, go to sleep, start over. That was unsustainable. I decided I didn't need to do the Alaska thing in the summers anymore, and so I just started doing freelance work full time. Then it got to a point where there were so many clients that I couldn't handle it myself. And so then I started bringing on team members. And so just a couple years ago was my first experiment with that. And fast forward to today, now I am the founder, owner of Karma Design. And we are a brand strategy and visual design studio, and we specialize in work with nonprofits, small businesses, and altruistic organizations. So anyone who places people and or planet over profit. I'm saying over. Thank you. Yeah, it's not easy, not at all. And but there are a number of incredible companies out there who are doing this. There's actually a whole certification program I just learned about called B Corporation. Probably one of the most well-known companies you know of, who is B Corporation certified, is good old Patagonia, one of the largest still privately held companies, who is so committed to social and environmental good that they impose taxes on themselves to limit their own growth. And if one of their interns gets arrested for peacefully protesting in an environmental way, they will pay to bail them out of jail. Those are the people that I emulate, just for some context. So I look to people like Von Schnard and Patagonia to run my business. But anyways, here's some of our work. So we branded Courage, which is a bike ride benefiting Mary Bridge Children's Hospital for our largest client, Multicare Health System. This is a booklet about the wonderful, amazing projects done by Washington's National Park Fund, our second biggest client. This is a shot in the middle there, the one not cluttered, awful looking magazine. Lucia is a independent women's magazine. I think of it as real stories written by real women. No airbrushing, no models, nothing, no advertising. As it says right there, breath of fresh air, I think an oasis right there in the middle. And I'm the design advisor for this incredible magazine, and the editor is here tonight, Laura. So thanks so much for coming, Laura. Incredible, check it out. Packaging, we do this sort of stuff. And groups like this, anybody know Lindsay Dyer? She jumps, pretty faces, any of those ring a bell? I'm scared. This is a group getting young girls out doing adventure sports, like climbing and skiing. And so we donated some pro bono work to do that logo in the background. And yes, their logo, that little one by their shoe jumps, is the giraffe horn. So they are rad. So here's our team. We're working away. We're here tonight. So yes, basically, you know, this fairly predictable, but not to me, transition from freelancing to solopreneur to business owner. And people ask me sometimes, because I actually barely do any design anymore, quote unquote. They say, like, do you miss it? You know, and no, not at all. There's so much more to do as a business owner that, like, if you want a challenge in your career, just start a business, and it's like starting. Like, you have to learn everything. So it's still creative in like the best ways, and still so stimulating and rewarding. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Yeah, so a little bit more about other living arrangements along the way. And it's really piecemeal. I mean, here we're in Walmart. If anyone can guess, so this is boondocking. Don't even know what that means. Like, not the Boondock Saints way, but the real way. Boondocking, picking a free spot to park, basically. So this is, yeah, right, Wi-Fi. This is me boondocking in Seattle, and if anybody can guess which Starbucks that is, I will buy you a drink at Starbucks.
Don't first.
Nope.
Is it in Seattle?
Seattle.
Broadway?
No.
Heard about how many close?
It's not the high
No.
in Capitol.
No.
Alcott.
Oh, who got it? I owe you a drink, girl. This is Alki, one of the best spots for parking a 24-foot motorhome. It looks right in front of service. You get Wi-Fi. Anyways, so that's that. We've got living on some people's farm in Oregon. Fantastic view. I got fresh farm eggs through the window. Learned how to milk a goat. We talked about the Quonset hut in the glacier. I lived with my grandparents for a while. I helped them with some stuff. Let's see. Then we've got the trailer park. This is in Flagstaff, Arizona. If anybody tells you it doesn't snow in Arizona, they're wrong. Guide housing when I was a guide. Property trade. This is up in Alaska this summer. So I called up the owners of this sled dog company and I asked if they knew a place to stay. And they said, well, you can live on our property. They're building a house in Arizona. And they're not there. And they said, all you have to do is mow the lawn. I was like, sweet, I can do that. Get up there. 5 acres long. Oh my gosh. It was my part-time job. But that was my view, so it's great. And I got really good at fixing mowers. That, and then this is, you know, freelancing from everywhere. This is the Meowtropolitan Cafe in Wallingford. You should go there if you haven't already. And sailboat. So that's actually where staying tonight in Chilshul. This is a client's boat, actually. That's very graciously allowing me to stay there. This is working on a sailboat in Chilshul. And Amtrak. Too soon? Yeah, thankfully. That was a little scary. It's like, and this is the latest. So, this winter, I decided to streamline. Yeah, I had my eye on this car for a long time. You guys heard about Honda Element? If you want to be a professional dirtbag, this is a great way to go. More cubic storage per volume than my mom and dad's Mazda CX-3, even though it's longer because it's a cube. So if you want to maximize your space, working in squares a little bit. And so that's that, and then there's all sorts of storage. He is here tonight. If anybody wants to see it in the real flesh and metal.
Well, what's his name?
Raven. And then in storage. There's one ring. And then just the open road, you know, that's home a lot of the time for me. I don't even know what this looks like. Probably going up to Death Valley or Joshua Tree. Yeah, those are Joshua Trees. But yeah, that's why it's really hard for me to answer that question when I do go over the border. I believe it went something like this. I wrote it down. U.S. border guard. So, where do you live? Me. like, they already have me on watch. He said, do you have a home? I said, not really. And he said, why not? And I said, because I don't want one. Then I had to sit for like 10 or 20 minutes while they made sure I wasn't smuggling things. Yeah, so that's a hard part.
Where your car's registered.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. So bought the car in Salt Lake because Honda Elements are really hard to find. They don't make them, and I wanted black all-wheel drive and manual. So flew out to get that, drove it down to Arizona, registered it there, where I was living at the time, and then I don't live there anymore. So when I go across the border and they ask me, I got a car from Arizona that I bought, and I'm like, sort of live in Washington, but I was in Oregon, and my health insurance is kind of like a few years. I don't even. So yeah, it's a huge red flag. But yes. Any other questions, by the way? I'm a fan of questions as we go. So if anybody has.
So manual, I'm manual.
I
don't know, I got manual.
No.
But I'm like,
I just
driving
like
now.
love to drive.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like you're driving unless you're choosing. And you've got more control. Yes.
Does your studio have a studio or?
Great question. We are all remote. Yes, by choice for now, but I would say that there are definitely some pros to being together, and I will talk about that importance of FaceTime as well. Real FaceTime. Anything else? Okay, moving on. We're gonna get into the how, but just for a little moment, in case I haven't explained it thoroughly enough, the why. Why do you do this? And people would ask me that mostly up on the glacier. They'd be like, why are you here? Like, why did you choose to live up here in the snow? Good question. And I would honestly answer, I would say desperation. And they thought I was joking, but it was true. I was just, there's nowhere quiet to go, I thought, in the city. To me, it's just like overstimulation, the traffic, now it's getting expensive, you guys all know that. The corporate work environment, etc. And then just, I guess, like the allure of the open road, where I'll talk about my dad in a second. It'll make a lot more sense. But basically, which one am I talking about now? Love this picture. This is my dad. What clues can we get from this? First of all, we've got Starbucks, right? So like Wi-Fi nearby. Flagstaff, excellent.
Likes good beer.
Yeah. Basically Kentucky, yeah.
And he's caffeinated.
He's caffeinated. There's America and McDonald's.
He's got a stand-up desk.
He's got a stand-up desk. Wonderful. So, my dad's story is arguably more interesting than mine, I think. And it'll be no surprise once you hear his. But long story short, my dad was born in Czechoslovakia when that was a country, communist Czechoslovakia. He realized by the time he was 16, he was never going to be able to do what he wanted with his life. Can you imagine? Like, you don't have a choice. So he went to aviation school, university, and joined a rock band. And the only way they would get news of the outside world was to tune into the radio Luxembourg. And they would get news, and they would listen to which band? Which band was famous in the 70s? Beatles. Very good. And they loved them some Beatles, and so they learned every Beatles song and became a very reputable cover band, to the point where they were invited to tour Europe on a special visa. They got permission to leave. Oh, ever. They were in Holland on tour, having a great time. My dad was the lead singer and guitarist. He turns around when they're, after a show and says to his buddies, "Not going back." They were pissed. Understandably, but they went back without him. They could run in jail. He stayed. He enrolled in a Dutch business school. Eventually earned his MBA there, even though at the time they did not have a Czech to Dutch dictionary. So he would do Czech to English, English to Dutch, Dutch to English, English to Czech, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to do his homework. My dad's fluent in Czech, English, Dutch, Spanish, Persian, Russian, a bit of French. I'm probably forgetting one. So then he was an exchange student in America and met my mom at the University of Oregon. We are, yeah, right? We are Bohemian, or I am Bohemian by blood, gypsies, like for reals. And he came here and started this business importing gliders, so not hang gliders, but big long white ones with no motor to get to it. I put another plane and sail around. And that's what he does. And he ran this business from our home when I was a kid growing up, and paid for my brother and I to go to school, supported our whole family, that whole thing. So he was literally American dream, entrepreneur, and I osmosed pretty much everything I know about running a business from him. Never realized it until recently, and now I call him like once a week probably. Incredible man. But if you want to see what working for yourself and working hard and making it look like, that man. So, anyways, I had that in mind when I'm looking at Starbucks and thinking, like, what do I like and not like about this? And I think that was just part of it, is the ability to choose, right? Like, he didn't have choice, and he gave up, sacrificed so much to be able to do that. It is a sacrifice, and if there's anything that I hope you guys can take away from that, is that you will sacrifice certain things to live the way that I do. You'll gain many things to live the way. And it's up to each of you to determine what that's going to look like. But for me, it was that vocation, and the Latin root vocare is calling, right? And I was literally called. I felt like I was called to the road. I didn't know why. I didn't know what it had in store for me. I just had to get away. I had to get out there. Had to challenge myself, put myself in uncomfortable situations. They say that, like, the only place you can grow is outside of your boundary, your comfort zone. Of course, like, how can you expand within the box? So for whatever reason, I chose that, and only later did I really decide, like, why. Like, you know what you need in your life, and you can't really put a finger on it at the time, every time. But later, I was able to see what I love so much about it, and it's the change of scenery every day. Visual inspiration and stimulation every day. It's meeting new people. It's work-life balance. I get to start and end work whenever I want. I work on the weekend if I want. Things all the time. Nature and beauty, like restoring my faith in humanity. All of this political stuff, really, like, I don't remember meeting a bad person on the road. I would roll up with some kind of issue, and anybody would help me. And I came to learn that we have more in common with each other than we have differences, just from traveling around this country. And, seeing that, like, firsthand, over and over and over, like, really helped restore my faith in humanity. Spending quality time with friends and family, finding design inspiration in the real world, meeting people who actually became clients, time to pursue your own passion projects, those sort of things. And so many more. That's just a small list of why I love it and continue to choose it every day. Choice. But yeah, so those are kind of some of my why, because people always wonder. And basically, bringing us to one of my favorite quotes: "If it were easy, everyone would do it." Why isn't everyone in an RV world right now? Well, you're about to see why. Yeah. Big Sur. I don't like Big Sur. Lots of people do, but this is my only memory of it. And anyways, hit a tree. I was parking, and I didn't see it. I was going like 5 miles an hour, and it was one of those ones that branch comes out like this at 90 degrees. Didn't see it. Crunch. It was all good. It was hugely awful at the time. Got it fixed, but stuff like that happens. I'll tell you a funny story. So, with a funny picture. That's how you have to park sometimes. When I was about to embark on my trip, I was parked up in Greenwood neighborhood, right? Yeah. That's been a while. And I was working on my RV painting and interior work and whatnot. And this woman comes up to me, some neighbor, and says, you know, you look like a really nice girl and everything. I've seen you here for a few days. I just want to let you know that there's this woman down the street, and she was also living in an RV for a while. She was a prostitute. And I just smiled and said, oh, thanks for letting me know. Stigma, right? Like, I was working at Starbucks headquarters at the time. Like, I was still, you know, getting ready for my trip and working at Starbucks headquarters. I've learned a lot about trying not to judge a book by its cover since becoming an RVer and living in an aging motorhome. It's not always romantic as it seems. That being said, WFH, it now has an acronym, work from home, arrangements are becoming much more common and acceptable. So that's good news for all of you who might be interested in it. With that, I'm going to tell you another story. I was connected with a guy who has a podcast about people who live in RVs and run businesses.
Yeah.
Right? And he wanted to interview me. Fairly well-known podcast. I'm not going to name names. And we scheduled time to meet, and I made sure that I was available and in cell phone range, blah, blah, blah. And then he canceled. Like, okay, whatever. Rescheduled. Again, I find a place to be. I check into like an actual RV park, which I don't usually do because they're expensive. So that I have Wi-Fi, and he cancels again. And he says, oh, I've got issues with the RV because he lives in one too. I'm sure you'll understand. I turned right around. You remember this. I might have consulted you. And I said, actually, I don't quite understand. Because the thing with people like us who live on the road is that we can't use our being as an excuse. The moment that we start admitting that that part of our lives is distracting us from being professionals is the moment we lose that freedom, right? By saying, oh, it's all good, you know how it is, my RV, you live in an RV. I told him straight up, with all due respect, sir, by saying things like that, you are decreasing the value of people like me and freelancers everywhere who choose to work from home. Because the minute that we admit that to our clients, they're leaving, they're gone, right? They're not going to put up with that. And I basically said to him, like, this is the only way that we're going to protect this way of life. So it's very important to make a distinction mentally if you're going to live this way between, and I said this once to a client, no wonder they didn't want to work with us. I described it as, or they probably asked me where you live. I said, oh, well, I travel a lot. I'm not traveling, I'm not on vacation. Like, I live on the road. It's a difficult concept for people to understand, right? Because there's no model for it out there. But be prepared for that kind of conversation and for those kind of situations. Any questions, thoughts on that? He basically said, I assume you would like to not reschedule. And I said, you assume correctly. Yeah. Yeah, so getting into the nuts and bolts. Wow, no. I brought some props. In case anyone has never actually seen a camp stove before. Here's what I'm using in my car right now. One of the most useful items I have, a spork. It's made of bamboo. Fantastic. Use this time. Use this. And what's this? This is a cell phone booster. This cost, I think, like $350. Worth it. You put this into your car secretly. You put this on the roof. And you put this by your phone. And it takes you from 1 bar 1x to 3 bars of LTE in the middle of the desert. It will not make service where you don't have any service. So, storage units. They're cool. For a while, I won't say I lived out of this because you're not allowed to. But as you can see, anyways, as you can see, I'll speak louder because I have a hair guy. Can you hear me? I would bike to the storage unit. This is actually across the street from Starbucks headquarters, in case you've ever noticed. And change out of my bike clothes, change into my work clothes, and walk across the street. Professional. So yes. Oh, are we back? We're back. Those are useful if you want to try out being a nomad for a while. Mail forwarding. I currently have my mail forwarded to my parents' address. It's not so great. I'm possibly going to get a PO box. You can get one that will actually collect all your mail, scan it for you, and tell you what it is. And some of them will actually deposit the checks for you. Way cool. Yeah, I might be doing that soon. Health insurance. Oh my gosh. Basically, like, it's one of those, like, tell me how you really feel moments. It's hard. Yeah, basically, I just have to, like, again, with parents, but I might even just, like, buy a sailboat so I have an address in Seattle. But pick an address, you can have health insurance, but I wish they had something for nomads. I really do. If you hear of anything, let me know. So, electronic billing. We do all of our billing electronically through our bank account for our business. So that's pretty easy peasy. I try not to do actual paper checks in the mail. And then mobile check deposit when I do. They're all 5 years ago, Carly. Communication. Here's, when I do get my mail, it'll get sent to me in batches by my family. It's like Christmas, all the mail at the same time, letters and bills and IRS. I once got a toll from the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco that happened like a month prior. Oops. And I called them and told them when I was up. They're like, oh, that's great, we'll take it off. So, but yeah, solar panel helps with all that communication stuff, which is the best carrier, Verizon, for this. Yeah, it'll have the most service. Even though seemingly I spend the most time in like those few areas of the map that are not covered. Like you see that map that they have over and over and over. So the places I like to go, I literally think I choose like the places that don't have any. Anyways, but it's still pretty good. Yes, iPhone is key. Just so you know, you can make calls on Wi-Fi when you don't have service. That's the only way that I existed in Alaska. In that house where I mowed the lawn, and they had Wi-Fi but no cell phone service. So it's a settings thing. You go in and you enable Wi-Fi call. Just so you know, people in Alaska didn't know this. I had to teach them. We talked about cell phone booster, Gmail, GCal, all the G's, docs and sheets and stuff. For obvious reasons, then you're speaking with your team. They know what you're up to. We've got Dropbox. We're very mise en place. Anybody knows what that is? Question term. Everything in its place. Keep your files super duper organized at all times. And then Harvest. You guys know about Harvest? Online time tracking and forecasting, scheduling, project management software. Fantastic. That's how we track all of our time. So yeah, it's like we're all in the same room for the most part. And it works pretty well for us. Having actual FaceTime is important with our clients. That's my dad again. He likes to take pictures of the iPad talking to me. I know, but he's so cute. Yeah, so keeping in touch with family, and also clients who use Hangouts a lot, and it's always fun. They always ask me, "Where are you today?" And I'll tell them. It's kind of a fun conversation starter. FaceTime is important. I do come to Seattle this year. This is where we have most of our clients, like once every quarter-ish. So I'll fly out or drive in or whatever. And then just like, so this is all the how, right? How do I actually do this? And a lot of the how is also people. And so just for a little game of funsies, how many people in this room were a coworker of mine? Current or former? Raise your hand up high. Yeah. Yeah. How many people would be like a colleague? You could say. That's right. Yeah. Maybe
Associated.
Yeah. Okay. Friends, etc. Yeah. Okay. And anybody else who just straight up knows me or knows my name or something? Yeah. Great. Cool. So I already know a bunch of people in this room, right? that's very intentional. You may have heard this quote before. It's one of those terrible things that be on a poster in a corporate office, but it's true. Your network is your net worth. So bad. But it's so true. And just wanted to mention that because I don't think I would qualify. Like I said, I wouldn't be here. But also for all of you guys who help me really support me when I need it and help me out all the time. So I really appreciate that. Then we're gonna get into the like, why should you do or do not this lifestyle? That's great grammar. And I have this interesting information that I just have to share because I'm a bit of a nerd and I love to research stuff like this. So, what's the difference between being a freelancer and having a salary and having that kind of work style as opposed to mine? There was a study recently that said that the average American works 8.8 hours per day. Of that 8.8 hours, they measured the amount of time that a person was actually working, not at work, working on work-related things, billable work-related things. Anybody want to guess how much time?
2 hours. 3 hours.
You guys are good. 2 hours and 53 minutes. I like that. Yeah, did you say hiking? Yeah. So, another factoid, keep that in your mind. I was recently found a statistic because we were applying for our business registration. And the way that they calculate one full-time employee, FTE, is 1,920 hours a year, right? With Harvest, it's very easy for us to go back and run a report on how many hours our studio spent on work. We just finished 2017. With me, and we currently have, I think, 10 contractors working not full-time, by most people's idea of full-time, 2 hours a day, but getting a bunch of work done all throughout the year, part-time, you know, blah, 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 blah. How many hours do you think our entire studio did in 2017? So, and it's also important to note that my goal, and you guys will know this, is that we bill by the minute. We use Harvest and we clock in and we clock out. If you're not working, you're not billing. Because why would we bill our clients for time that we're not working? I guess this is just a thing I have from my dad working so hard and whatnot. But keeping that in mind, if we're only billing time that we're actually working. Any guesses? So remember, one full-time employee is 1,920 hours. In 2017, our studio, with 10 contractors getting all these projects done, billed 2,000 hours. One full-time employee. Why am I telling you all of this? Well, it has a whole heck of a lot to do with how you like to work and what your concept of work is and what's important to you. I must have somehow known this when I was at Starbucks because it would irritate me to no end when I would get my work done and I would turn to Jeff Barlow, who became my boss, lovely, lovely man. But I would say to him, "Hey, Barlow, I'm done. Can I go home?" He'd be like, "No." Right? Makes sense, you know, like in that environment, you need to be available and people come drop things on your desk and like you have to be there. It didn't jive with me. Like I got my work done. Like, can I go? No. I would also ask for like time off. I was a contractor. I've never had a day of paid vacation in my life, by the way. You know, I'd ask if I could go to Utah and climb for a week or something. And it was like this big deal because people didn't really do that. And I'd be like, you're telling me that I'm getting judged for asking for unpaid time off to go do something that will be beneficial for me. Another word I can think of to describe that would be indentured servitude. Right? Yeah, 2 words. Thanks. Jeez. You guys are calling me on things. I like it. Yeah. So yeah, basically, like, I wrote it this way, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but if you're the type of person who likes to work casually and be paid to be there, if it makes sense to have a salary, my best girlfriend is a firefighter. Of course, she needs to get paid for time that she's sleeping because she could get woken up at any moment and have to fight a fire and put her life in danger. But if that works for you, be in an environment where it's understood that you're getting paid a salary for a reason and there's value and it makes sense, go work in that kind of environment. But if you want to get it done and go outside and go hiking and live this life, be a contractor. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so just wanted to kind of blow your minds a little bit with those statistics because I just discovered them and conflated them myself, put them together. And that's just so revealing to me of like, yes, this is why I do this. So to help you think of just a little more, if you aren't already brain racing, about what this would look like for you without making a quiz, which I really wanted to do, but it didn't work out. I'm just going to ask you some questions. It's fun. Actually, you're going to like this for a moment. Many roads to Rome, or Rome. And as you think about that, we'll go back to what appeals to you about living nomadically? Like, why are you here today? What was it that piqued your interest, sparked your interest, brought you out here? Here's the evening. What would it enable you to do that you can't already do? Right? How do you want to like to spend your free time? Big fan of free time. If you're trying to solve a problem in your life, can you solve it without turning your life upside down? Or is turning your life upside down absolutely what you want to do, spiritually, emotionally? How much social interaction do you need? Do you know whether you're an introvert or extrovert? Do you know whether you like working for someone else or working for yourself? Do you need to have coworkers tapping on your shoulder? Can you check in with them via FaceTime? Is that enough for you? Thinking about those sort of things. What is your personal work style? Managing versus being managed. What don't you like about your current job if you don't like something about it? What kind of creature comforts do you need? Do you like to cook? Do you need to shower? Do you those sort of things. Can you take your job with you? If you don't need to, fine, that's fine too. But if not, what are you going to do for work? Good questions. Carly pondered as she stood on the roof and gazed at the sunrise. So yeah, that's the who, what, where, when, why, how, and basically, if I had any kind of moral of the story sort of things. I've said there, because if I actually put on Instagram what happens in real life, that is a poopsicle. That is winter 2013, circa Wyoming. I don't remember. The pipes froze. Everybody told me not to carry water in the winter, and I did anyway. And this happened. Yeah, it's not as romantic as it seems all the time, and yet it is. Let's go to that one. And going back to this quote that I just found that I love. There is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. Similarly to if you're doing it for Instagram, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. Happiness is not a destination. You keep driving further and further down that long road that I showed you guys. You won't get there. It's a state of mind that you have to adopt always. If you are happy, you will be happy. You already are, right? If you're seeking something, seek it within yourself. You have it. You can alter your environment to an extent, but that happiness is not guaranteed. You can guarantee it for yourself. But that's what it says. And we won't end with a poopsicle picture. but that's kind of just it's good to see the Big Dipper. That's the Eastern Sierras. Favorite shots of that. Yeah, and then I do have just a couple slides in case you want to maybe on Instagram take a picture of the apps that I rely on most frequently as a Nomad: Harvest, Dropbox, Gcal, Google Sheets, Google Docs, podcasts, voice memos. I talk to myself a lot. Camera photos, Chase, I think, with Mint, finances, Google Maps. I think it's like gas, Google or something where it's gas, how cheap is it? Wi-Fi, Starbucks, Yelp, and then Carly's Book Club. The books that I love and would recommend if you would like to learn more about living a creative life, finding your calling, organizing your underwear very carefully, like changing matches, tidying up, business, how to optimize your time, 168 hours, fascinating book, Power of Habit, and then a bunch of podcasts will keep you interested for hundreds and hundreds. And that's all I got. I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions. So, questions?
When is your book coming out?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I've thought about writing a book, but I think it would be interesting.
How do you decide where to go?
Ooh, that's a good question. How do you decide where to go? Was the question. I have a joke too that there are two types of people in the world: the ones who look at their desktop background, the ones who go there. So literally, like pictures I was already just seeing around, I would try to get to the bottom of where is that, and put it on the list. And then once you get on the road, it's kind of just like, hey, where have you been recently? Like you're passing each other at the gas station. Where'd you come from? You need a family, and I would ask like the youngest kids, 3-year-old, like, what was your favorite place you went? Goblin Valley, just this place in Utah, and it's like we've got these mushroom clay shaped. You see where a 3-year-old would like it. But I went there and I was like, he's right. Smartest 3-year-old I've ever met. Yeah, so you just kind of make it up. Yeah.
What led you to study?
That's a good question. What led you to studying design? I thought I wanted to be a communication major originally, and I was doing news, like high school newspaper, and then I realized it was the way that things were arranged on the page that I actually liked about it, not the logo as much. And that just kind of led to, how do you visualize information, which then led to branding, which is the perfect like amalgamation of people, art, and I'm a people person. Visual aesthetics. So how do you put the person or an organization into vision? Right. So that's what got me to it. Kept me in it.
How do you handle taxes?
It's I do pay my taxes, people. It's actually not as hard as you would think. The more complicated part really is just tracking where our incomes coming from, because you have to report taxes differently depending on the state in which you originate. So we pay taxes in California, Oregon, Washington, Massachusetts, Alaska, like wherever it's coming from. And then the rest of it, I work with an accountant, and it's not too bad, really. Did you have a more specific part of tax? Yes?
What is your average comfortable cost of living?
Ooh, wow. What is your average comfortable cost of living?
Per year.
It's really hard to determine. When I was working as a guide, I got by on like nothing. And it boggled my mind that I now make a lot more than that and somehow manage to spend it all. That's one thing that somebody told me is, as your income increases, don't ramp up your lifestyle with it. But it's hard not to do. It's really hard to answer that question. But when I was a guide, I think my total income for that year was I was happy as a clam, waiting on a helicopter. So yeah, it's like you don't need much. Yeah.
So related to that, then, what about investing for so-called retirement?
Yep. How do you look at that? My mama raised me right, and my banker is very strict with me, and so I have 2 IRAs and a mutual fund, short-term and long-term, and a bunch of money in savings. Yeah, I'm thinking about the future for sure. I'm also thinking about the short-term future, so I'm a fan of short-term investments so that I can use them before I'm like 69 and a half or whatever it is. So yeah, smart with the money. Rainy day. Get a tree. Never know. Yes.
Have you ever gone internationally?
Traveling or
And working?
Well, I was in Canada last week. Does that count? No, I haven't traveled internationally outside of North America since I really started doing this super duper full time. But I don't see how it would be too different. And actually, we'll be testing that this May. I'm going to be out of the country for 2 months to celebrate my 30th birthday by walking across Spain. So I'm doing the Camino de Santiago with friends, and it takes about a month. So yes, we are going to be beta testing, having my wonderful, wonderful team babysit business while I'm gone. Scary. But it'll be great. And yes, I'll check in with them maybe once a week. But to demonstrate to them the lifestyle that I want them to be able to have working with us. I chose this life because I wanted to be able to do that. Yes.
How do you deal with that?
How do I deal with healthcare? Oh. I mean, basically, I just choose the best permanent address I have, which is my parents' house, and I apply through Obamacare, and I pay for it myself. Other questions? Yes.
Seems somewhat fearless, and these things that you do, require courage, and from travel on your own to starting a business and charging clients money for your services and things. You brought up that, where did you come to that through your experiences?
Love that question. Thank you. That's a huge compliment to call me fearless. I try not to use that word to describe myself. I experience a lot of fear. And that's one of these books, There's Magic Here, Creative Living Beyond Fear. Before I left on my first RV trip, my mom asked me to take a self-defense class. And so I did. Valerie was great stuff. And the biggest takeaway I had from that was just, if you feel unsafe, you probably are. Trust your intuition. Again, you have everything you need inside. I actually have a lot of anxiety about traveling, believe it or not. And there were nights when I was terrified. I'll be one of those nights. Several. And it's not saying that you're fearless. It's saying, I have fear. And in this book, she'll say it better because she's a great author. Fear will always have a seat in the car. Exactly. It's always there. It'll be there in the back seat. Chatter. It'll be there. It's in the back of your head all the time, right? But you have to tell fear, hey, fear, I see you. I hear you. You're back there. You can sit there, because I know you will, and I don't have a choice. But you will never drive. You will never make the decisions. You won't even touch the radio. That's how she says it in her book. That's being fearless, is admitting that you're full and doing it anyway. But listening to your intuition, if you ever really do feel, there's a difference between healthy fear and real fear, right? The animal, primal fear. Tune into that. Right? But thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else? Yeah.
So winters, it looked like you were in some cold climates. How does that work? How did that look here? Did you ski, or what did you do in the winters?
Oh yeah. Yes. How did winter work? Winter works quite well when you prepare for it the right way. The problem with what I did the first winter was that I didn't winterize, so I didn't remove the water from the system. That's what most people do when they're moving with the RV in the winter. when I lived in Flagstaff, when we saw that picture covered in snow, I built a skirt around the bottom, which is just rigid foam insulation that is sealing everything down to the ground. It's like some people even put space heaters underneath. Sounds like fire hazard. And then I wrapped all the exterior plumbing in insulation and I ran heat tape. Spent many hours with this. And that worked. People who came around to refill the propane in the park, because it's a trailer park. I turned to him and I was like, "Don't you like my icicles? Aren't they so pretty?" And he said, "That's because you have the oldest RV in the park and you have the worst like heat loss through your roof." So it worked. You know, she has a great furnace and good supermarket, super fast. It's a small space, but that's cool. But yes, I got to ski in lots. Any other questions? Yeah.
So you have a car and you have the motor. How do you like decide when you're using what? Is it just a matter of like
Yes. I have the car on the motorhome one. I got the car when I was parked in the trailer park actually to get to and from grocery stores and whatnot because it was all insulated so I could move. Then I actually just started kind of liking the car better because it's more nimble right now for what I'm wanting to do. I've seen a lot of the national parks now. It's more so about going directly to friends and family. And little secret, Carly is going to build a tiny house.
Oh.
Yeah, that's my next step. I used to make fun of the tiny housers, but no. And so mentally, I've already moved on to that. And so I kind of just used the car as a way to get up and back from Alaska because that's just really far away to go in the RV and to be more nimble and move around. Yes.
Are you going to build your tiny house as a trailer or on the ground?
Yes, I designed it to be a trailer, and it will have to be pulled by a very strong truck or semi-truck. My car won't pull it.
What's your favorite national park?
Ooh, what's your favorite national park? You know, I guess I'll still have to stick with Bryce. Utah. There's just like nowhere else like it, and I have one of the most fantastic stories from there. When I rolled into Bryce for the first time, it was November, cold, snowy, nobody there. And I went to the campground. Nobody there, not a single person. I like to be alone to a point, but then it's like an entire park to myself, you know, campground to myself. And Black Sprinter rolls up. Mom and Dad hop out, and 3 little tow-headed kids keep around the seat. Yes, you know, they see this girl, this giant RV. And I go over and chat with them, and I can tell they're debating. You guys gonna stay here? And, well, we don't have heat in Sprinter, so it's gonna be really cold, 20 degrees probably that night. Probably have to get a hotel room. And I took one look at them. I'd been on the road for a couple months, and I was like, "Oh, fearful," and like tapping in. Looked them over. Was like, "Do you guys want to stay in my RV with me?" Complete strangers. Really? And I said, "Yeah, it sleeps 6." 2 nights with this family from Maine in my RV. We made Nutella hot cocoa and spaghetti with meatballs, and we watched Balto. Yeah. We went hiking together. They pulled their kids out of school for 6 months, and we're traveling all around the country, living in the van. Junior Ranger program, learning all about geology, like in the real geology sense. And still friends with them. Just saw them a month ago. They live on a 100-acre farm in Maine. And they're the baddest people I know. And I never would have met them. Yeah.
What is like the research involved before getting your RV? Did you learn to go, or was it just a lot of it?
What was the research involved with my RV? None. I didn't know what I was doing. Okay, here's another one. So, tapping into little signs and clues. Situational awareness, by the way, super key. You want to become a nomad? Develop your situational awareness. I get to the first RV park I've ever been to. I check in. I don't know how any of the systems work yet. I don't know how to operate in. Barely drive. And I get to the front counter. There's one of those little masks that says, "Bienvenue, welcome in," like all languages. And I just chat up the dude, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm here. Colin just checked in. In 2 seconds, I think to myself, interesting, okay, they're probably older because, you know, they don't have the time to go over here and put Colin in nice and have some. And I'm like, could you put me next to them? I just have to be like, yeah, sure. Put me next to them. I get over there and try to maneuver this behemoth RV around, not hit things. And, you know, I get to the spot and I have to back in. And already, Peter is sitting in the front seat of his RV, looking up from his face. He's got a sweater and like a necktie. And he looks up probably like this. And sees me trying to back in the spot. Like, paper down, gets outside. Can I help you? Yes! And helps me back in. And then I'm taking out the sewer hose like, and he's like, can I help you? Yes! He taught me every system in my RV in wonderful English. Knew it way better than I did, even though he was renting a motorhome from Holland to do that. And he and his wife, Marika, invited him in. I had Gouda and ginger because that's a Dutch thing that my mom taught me. I had on hand, like already, served it to them. And in the span of like 5 minutes, we learned that he went to the same school that my dad went to. Nijmegen in Holland. Weird. I think so. So yeah, stuff like that. How I learned. Network is a network.
Anybody else?
Yes.
You totally don't have to answer this.
Okay.
Like you're such a people person, you make all these friends, but like, does the nomad life affect your dating?
Ooh. Oh my god. Should I tell this story?
Yeah, tell us.
Has the nomad life affected your dating life? Oh my god. All right. The last serious relationship I was in was about 3 or 4 years ago. That was actually part of what compiled to inspire me to leave, but not all of it. I'm not going to give them that much credit. This summer, I was rolling through the Canadian border. I lived about 15 miles from the border in Alaska, BC. I was training for the ride that we branded Courage, excellent bike ride. Nobody wants to do a big charity ride. And there's only one road. So I would go to the road and bike into Canada and back to train. And I get to the border and I pull out my passport and hand it to the officer. And very first thing the Canadian officer says to me, thank you so much for not putting your passport in the mouth. I thought about it, I was like, okay, so when you're on a bike, like you got your passport in your back of your pocket, you're in the line of cars, and when it's your turn, you take it out and put it in your mouth, so you put hand like hand waters and go forward. I don't do that and I had like 10 years of bags and stuff. And so I said, like, well, why would I do that? Because then you touch it and then I'm supposed to put it back in my mouth. He's like, well, and then I asked for, what's the miles to kilometers conversion, and you can do that. Okay, interesting. Went on my ride, left. 3 weeks later, I go through the border again, training. Terrible, stormy, windy day. It was awful. It was an amazing ride. He's like, picked an interesting day to go on a ride. And I said, well, I'm doing this ride in Seattle, so there's probably like 1,000% chance it's going to rain. So you probably train in the rain. It was such a bad ride. It was 80 miles, like 5,000 feet of elevation, and solo in BC Yukon wilderness. They're bears and moose here. I got to the top of the pass, and I was hiding behind an 8x8 post. There was no shelter. I found through all my socks and limbs. Anyways, and had more time to chat with him because there was no one on the road. And like I do, because yes, I'm outgoing, he comes back with my passport, and I'm like, I'll change you. And I gave him my business card. And 10 hours later or so, I get back home, drenched, wet dog, cat, whatever, and check my email. From home, I have an email from Officer of the Canadian Border Services Agency. Long story short, he It's right So yeah, that worked out pretty well. That was I'd say it turned out. Yeah. Questions? Yes.
Do you have any recipes you'd recommend?
Oh.
Any quick ones that you
Oh my
you don't get
gosh.
tired of on the road?
So many. It depends if I'm picking my car or my RV. But that's the thing about like in your RV, you have a fridge, a freezer, and you have gas. It's like, get me spring rolls. I cooked those in the backcountry once with that setup. Yeah. Red cookbook.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So, anybody else? Any regrets? Ooh. Not being more forgiving. Myself. I am harder on myself than anybody else. A friend actually helped me come up with a mantra that works well for me. But it's like, pretty simple. It's just, how could you have known? You can only learn by doing. And I think in a strange way, like this whole experience, Betty, the RV, all the trials and tribulations, was my like chosen path for learning to practice forgiveness. So yeah, I could go back and just be like, hey man, cool. We'll get there. Be okay. Yes, Bruce.
What advice would Nomadic Carly give Starbucks Carly?
Oh, keep your day job. I don't regret my time at Starbucks whatsoever. And I will easily say that like without having that on my resume, it probably would have been a lot harder to do. So if you're thinking about putting your Amazon, Microsoft, insert tech company here, day job, I hope this will have already inspired you to think twice, thrice, etc. about it. But I guess I would have told myself like there is a way to have what you want and live a balanced life. And you can have it now, doing exactly what you're doing, or you can have it later. But again, you have to manifest it for yourself. That whole like, there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. That concept didn't exist in my mind as it started. So if I told myself that then, I think I would have been happier then. Anyone else?
A rescue